Well, it's been a few months since the November midterm election, but still a lot to clean up from all of that. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, and we're joined in studio by Don Tracy. He is the chairman for the Illinois Republican Party. Don, thanks for taking time with us. Last time we had you in studio was, like 2 years ago?
2 years ago. I had just been elected as
that's right.
Republican state chairman. Yep.
Yeah, so I appreciate you taking the time with us, and I imagine we'll talk more in the future as well.
Sure.
But let's get to it with the November election. We've heard a lot of prognosticators out there beforehand saying that Republicans are going to have a really good year across the country. Didn't necessarily materialize in the U.S. Senate. Kind of did in the U.S. House, though not the large majorities that they were expecting. But Illinois, no statewide offices, the supermajorities maintained in the Illinois House and Senate. What happened in Illinois?
Well, we didn't have a gigantic red wave in Illinois like we were all hoping for. There were a lot of headwinds in Illinois. You know, none of our statewide candidates were incumbents. They were running against incumbents. The late primary meant that Republicans were running against Republicans in our primaries until, almost like 3 months before early voting. It's a big disadvantage. Pritzker spent $175 million. It's a big headwind. But we were hoping, because the issues seemed to favor us, like the economy and inflation issues and the crime issue in the Chicago area, that a red wave would help overcome all these headwinds. But we did have some red waves in parts of the state. A lot of people don't realize that. Downstate got redder. A lot of the county boards got more Republican throughout downstate, and particularly in the rural areas. In Madison County, there's now a majority of Republican circuit judges, which means Madison County is no longer a judicial hellhole. When I graduated from law school in 1976, there were headlines in legal magazines about Madison County, Illinois, being the #1 judicial hellhole in America. And now it's a Republican county.
Yeah, Americans for Tort Reform recently did just de-elevate Madison County on that judicial hellhole list.
George Bush came to give publicity to it, and on class actions, because national class actions were being filed in Madison County. McHenry County had a good night. LaSalle County, other counties had a good night. So we had many red waves throughout the state. But statewide, it was an ugly night, I have to say.
So what do you think was the cause of it being an ugly night? We've heard a lot of criticism about the top of the ticket. Even Leader Jim Durkin, no longer in the Illinois House, but he criticized the top of the ticket, saying that it wasn't the right top of the ticket to have. What was your assessment of the top of the ticket, and is that something that the Republican Party should be evaluating?
Greg, top of the ticket means the gubernatorial race, means Darren Bailey versus J.B. Pritzker. Top of the ticket is critically important in elections because that race impacts down ballot races. A lot of your average voters, they don't pay any attention to any race during the midterms except for top of the ticket, the gubernatorial race. So you need a strong candidate at the top if you're going to have success in the midterm elections. And Darren Bailey was a very strong regional candidate who had never run for statewide office before and who had very limited funds. And he was running against a polished statewide incumbent sitting governor with unlimited funds. And that was, a basic mismatch. And that hurt not just Bailey, but it hurt candidates, down ballot, like the Supreme Court races, the congressional races, and the state house races, and even some of the county board races. Darren Bailey had coattails, and coattails are important. And that's another way of looking at the top of the ticket, is how good are the coattails. And he had strong coattails in parts of Illinois, particularly in rural parts of Illinois. But he had negative coattails up in the suburbs and in the city of Chicago, and that's really where we lost the statewide races.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit more about that, in particular, the idea of how to get a conservative angle that plays well in the suburbs, right? I do want to talk about that, but on the election, you personally have been criticized by some publications out there about the process of the primary, and maybe some funds were used and this is what's being alleged there. Some funds were used to help prop up one candidate over the other in the primary, which typically, the official party's supposed to refrain from that type of thing. So address some of the critics out there that have been publishing things critical of you, critical of the party, wanting to have more of a grassroots type of nature about it. So react to some of that.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, that it's absolutely false that the state Republican Party played any role in the gubernatorial primary. Now, we do play a role in some of the other primaries, but not the gubernatorial primary. I inherited a policy of strict neutrality in the gubernatorial primary, and we observed it strictly. So that rumor, that accusation is absolutely false. I believe in the Buckley rule. I'm sure you're familiar with the Buckley rule.
For those who aren't,
it means you don't necessarily elect in your primary as a Republican the most conservative candidate. What you want come out of your primary is the most conservative candidate who is electable statewide, and I think we kind of ignored that this year. But other people, got involved in our primary. We didn't. We were strictly neutral. There were a lot of major donors that were very active in promoting various candidates in the primary.
Was it the Democratic Governors Association with Pritzker money involved?
Absolutely. Allegedly $35 million of Pritzker money, either directly or through the Democrat Governor Association or the Democrat Party of Illinois, played in our primary. Because Pritzker wanted to run against Darren Bailey. So we have, we're a weak party. Statewide. I inherited a weak party. I'm working to rebuild it. But because we're a weak party, our primary, and it's a low turnout primary, it can be easily manipulated. So, so we had all these other people, these outside influences, including the opposition, playing in our primary. And what did we at the state party level do? Absolutely nothing, because of our strict neutrality policy. Is that the right policy? I don't know. But I'm going to appoint a committee to take a look at that because, it's not, we don't represent as a state party just the gubernatorial campaign. We represent all the campaigns. And a lot of these great candidates we had this past time put their heart and soul and their family treasure into these races, only to be impacted by the top of the ticket and something they had no control over. So I think we almost have a fiduciary duty to look at our primary and determine whether neutrality is the best policy.
We're talking with Don Tracy. He is the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party. We got to take a break, but I do want to talk a little bit more about that idea in the primary season, but also what kind of ground game there has to be as well. We've got mail-in voting, which is very much a reality in the state of Illinois. How is that going to be utilized by the Republican Party? So just a few more things we'll talk with Don Tracy about here on WMAY. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop, and much more. All right, back live with Don Tracy. He is the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party. We've been talking about where the party is, a little bit of reaction to some of the critics who've thrown some aspersions towards Tracy and the Republican Party in Illinois. I do want to touch on that just one little moment here, Don, and the idea of having a more what some would characterize as grassroots take over the party. And we saw that with a recent meeting you guys had. A lot of people showed up. They wanted to speak. Some allegations of things getting unruly, some videos surfaced and whatnot. But your thoughts on that push to have more of a grassroots efforts in the party, does that kind of conflict with that idea of having a top of the ticket that's open to getting support from the suburbanites?
I don't think so. The grassroots activists want to win, just like I think the establishment. But the party really is a grassroots party. I mean, we have county parties, and we work at the local level, and then we have the state party that works on a statewide level. And a lot of the people that came to that meeting, are people that are fairly new to politics. So. And people that hadn't worked with our county parties a lot. And our goal is to channel that energy and that passion into the party structure, getting them working with our our county chairs and doing the the hard work of knocking on doors and local campaigning. All politics are really local in a way. For statewide races, you need foot soldiers, and the grassroots activists tend to be our foot soldiers. So we're establishing a new committee with that in mind, which I call the Capacity Building Committee / Grassroots Committee. And the idea there is to help some of our county parties whose infrastructure has kind of lagged in development over the years. We had 26 years of Republican governors, and since then it's been kind of tough. And patronage, used to be a way that the local parties thrived and survived, and we don't have that anymore. And some of the local parties haven't ever recovered from that. So this committee is going to focus on helping the local parties that haven't kept up with the times, build back their capacity, and at the same time helping them and the grassroots activists work closer together.
We talked last segment about how to get a statewide candidate that would be appealing for those who might be more independent leaning in the suburbs. What does that look like in your opinion?
Well, I already alluded to the Buckley rule. We obviously we're the conservative party, but we want a conservative who is electable. Abortion is a huge issue within our party, and it's a huge issue for the Democrats. And the Democrats are really extreme on abortion. I mean, they recently took away parental notification so that if your minor child's having an abortion, I would think as a parent you would want to know. Democrats took that away. We now have taxpayer-funded abortions in Illinois. We have late-term abortions. I don't think most people are there. There used to be pro-life Democrats. Dan Lipinski was. I think he was the last prominent Democrat politician who was pro-life. The pro-lifers have pretty much been purged from the Democrat Party, whereas the Republican Party, we have pro-choice Republicans. We have pro-life Republicans.
What about guns? There were several Democrats, including locally Doris Turner, who voted against the gun ban. Is that somewhere where there could be some middle ground?
The Democrats always the gun violence in Illinois and America is very tragic. There was a tragic shooting in California, I think, over the weekend, and it's a hard problem. But the Democrats are always looking to do something, and usually that doing something is taking the easy way out. It's easy to pass a bill that basically says law-abiding citizens can't buy guns, or they have to register their guns, or maybe they're going to take their guns away from law-abiding citizens. That's easy stuff. You raise your hand, you vote like that's virtual signaling, that sort of thing. But the hard approach, the harder solutions is to get the illegal guns off the streets, to get the criminals, the hardened criminals that are killing, I think, 15 people a week on the average in Chicago. It's just a few people. Get them off the street, prosecute them, Kim Fox, and address the mental issues that we have in our country. The solution is not taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. I think we need the good guys need to have more guns, and the bad guys need to have no guns. But that's hard work. It takes proactive policing and community policing.
But is that a perspective?
But the Democrats, they're anti-police, and anti-funding police. They want to take away police powers. Just the opposite of what we need to do.
We're talking with Don Tracy. He is the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party. And finally here, you talked about some of the issues that you're looking to try to get some of the moderates on in the suburbs and the top of the ticket issues versus more of the grassroots down in the county level and whatnot. But what about the ground game, the mail-in balloting? Mail-in balloting, of course, expanded in Illinois during the pandemic. It used to be absentee ballots. Now it's just universal mail-in balloting if people want it. I think I saw that 2+ million people requested mail-in ballots across the state. Around 700,000 were sent in. Around 650,000 were counted, or whatever the final tally was. But traditionally, Republicans have been kind of opposed to the idea of expanding mail-in balloting. That's the reality now.
Well, it is, and we were still opposed to expanding it, and it's it's a real challenge for election integrity to have all these mail-in ballots floating out there, and it's not just a challenge from the standpoint of people gaming the system or exploiting the system or double voting, and there is that out there, or voter or large or widespread voter fraud. It's not just that, but a lot of it is just the challenge to the clerk's office, from same-day registration, from early voting season, 40 days of voting, and no voter photo ID. It's a real hard thing, and it's a very expensive thing. We at the state party level, we did encourage voting by mail, and Republicans actually did more voting by mail. It's if we're ever in power, we'll do what they've done in some of the other states and add some election integrity guardrails to voting by mail. But in the meantime, we have to play by the rules that are there. And the Democrats have increased turnout through voting by mail. We Republicans have got to do that. So we encourage all Republicans to go ahead and sign up for permanent vote by mail. Get your ballot. That way you protect somebody else from using your ballot. It's safe and secure individually. The widespread use of voting by mail is not safe and secure. It presents challenges, but individually it is. So please do that. We're going to do more, as much as we can. But I heard that Pritzker spent $10 to $20 million on their vote by mail program. We didn't have those resources. We raised about $2.2 million in the last 2 years at the state party level, which is a pittance compared to the money that Pritzker spent. So it's a challenge. But again, that's part of capacity building. Sangamon County here in Springfield does a pretty good job with voting by mail. Not all the other counties do. We're going to try to help the other counties do a better job with voting by mail.
Don Tracy, the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party, I imagined we'll talk more in the future about these issues and more, but I think some of the top line things I'm hearing is that you've got several committees that you're forming for the party to evaluate everything from how to best approach the suburbs with the GOP's message, then also how to best incorporate grassroots efforts. Is that my understanding? 2 new committees?
Absolutely. And I'm also convening a meeting of the suburban county chairs up in Chicagoland to find out why we're losing in the suburbs and how we can change that trend.
Well, I appreciate it again, and we'll talk again in the near future. All right, Don Tracy,
Greg.
chairman of the Illinois Republican Party. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, now 8:33.
92.7 WMAY.